Yes, we're back. All right, another one. So we are in part 4. This is JK Q&A, Volume 4, WildStar Edition, Part 4. Man, we're getting through it. And thanks for sticking with me. I appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun. And we're going to see how far we get today. Still got a lot more questions to go. But it's pretty fun to do. So, let's see. We're going to get started. Here we go. Sadachbia? Sorry if I butchered that name. Please give us a theme song for Deadeye Brightland. Oh, man. Deadeye Brightland I also thought was a great character. I never got a chance to really write him a theme. I know he's pretty important to the Exiles. But we just never had a situation where I got to give him a theme. And I agree. That's kind of a shame. I feel bad about that. So that's a bummer. Okay, we're going to move on to Rael. I think Rael Hex. I absolutely loved WildStar, and the music was phenomenal. Hey, thank you. Wow, high praise. So first of all, just thank you so much for that. Well, you are welcome. Thank you for thanking me. My question is, how do you translate characterization, such as different races, areas, settings, into musical form? Ooh, that's a good question. When I was working on WildStar, it was really important for me to dig into the lore and the motivation of the characters or the races. So if you look at the Mordesh, I think they're a good example of this. So I remember when I first wrote the Mordesh theme, my first crack at it, Chad Moore, who was he was, I think, the creative director at the time, and eventually became the game director. But he came in, he listened to it, and he was like, wow, man, this is not it. I had done something that was a little bit more maybe terrifying and scary and sort of zombie-ish, and because I was just looking at the art and I didn't really know them as people, but they just sort of looked kind of gross and zombie-ish, and so I wrote something that I thought encapsulated that from an art style. But the reality is they weren't that, right? They were these scientists and sort of this misguided approach to create eternal life. And what they ended up doing was regrettably creating something that ultimately was destroying their physical form. And so, but they were once these beautiful creatures. And so once Chad sat down to me and explained the lore and really dug in, it was eye-opening. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So then I started writing a piece of music that has this beauty, but over time, there's a ticking tock sound in the cue of their theme. And over time, it starts to sort of, the tonality disintegrates, and we get a little bit of a feeling of deterioration and sort of death sort of taking over. And so what was once beautiful sort of being corrupted and becoming a physical tragedy, really, as their bodies start to degrade. So, and the different areas, like if it was something like Aurora was just so beautiful with these fields, and so how do you bring that to life? Well, I want something that feels bright and peaceful and warm, and so using an ethnic flute to do that, I thought it just made sense to have something that wasn't, a standard instrument, and then having these French horns play close chords, real tight harmonies together, just warm and in a lower register of their horn. It just kind of brings a warm and a beauty to it. So I guess I'm trying to dig into the motivation and the motivation of the race or the character, and trying to bring that to light through music. And for me, it has to be like, oh, this is a bad guy. We have good guys. I think it needed to be more than just major minor. It needed to be, the world is not black and white. There are some great people with misguided ambitions, and then there's some horrible people doing evil things in this game, but yet there's some sort of redeeming quality, and so trying to find that nuance, trying to find those threads that I can pull within the character story to highlight that, hey, you know what, there's a depth here that maybe you don't really get at first. And so my job was to sort of understand how deep was this pool, whether it's a character or a zone. How deep is this pool, and what are we looking at? And my job was to try and bring that to life as best I could. I think some zones I did better than others, but that was my approach. Bree and I have spoken on Twitter quite a few times. She's always very kind, so thank you for participating in this. What was the inspiration behind all the Orin tracks, such as our song? The Orin music was, I wanted something that felt very natural. So we have a lot of sort of almost homemade percussion, wooden sticks and sort of clicky clack things and hand drums, almost like a beautiful tribal experience. So I really wanted to try and capture their love for nature, their heartache at losing their home world, and trying to make a new path forward on this planet Nexus, and just their connection with nature. So I really wanted it again to be warm and inviting and beautiful, without making them feel like they weren't strong or that they didn't have any intensity to them. Because when the time comes, they can definitely be intense. But I really wanted lots of flutes, lots of hand percussion, lots of warm strings, very, very little brass, but just these kind of warmer tones. So that's what I was trying to accomplish. I would have liked to have done more with choir and some sort of like, like what we did at the Sword Maidens. I thought that was awesome. As we looked at that theme and you had the chanting and everything, I thought that came off really well for those women in that game. And I kind of wanted to always do something like that with the Orin, and we just never did. Miguel says, how did you come up with the Elden theme? Did it take lots of experimentation, or was it a rather random idea? The melody is definitely unique and one of the best things ever created in the game. Well, thank you very much. That was also early on. Let's see if I can find it. I went through quite a few different versions. This is, if you missed the last video, this is my notebook of a bunch of WildStar sketches. My time there. Oh, okay. Now we'll just trip down memory lane here for a second as I'm turning these pages. I haven't looked at this in a long time. But in my other note, I have two books. In the other one, in the last video, we talked about Levy and Bay. When I wrote the Levy and Bay theme, it became the WildStar main theme. But this says WildStar main theme V1. So this was like an early crack at what I thought. I was just sort of conceptualizing main theme ideas. Now let's see what it sounds like. Let's see. Hopeful. Oh, and a little darker there. Yeah. Okay. So I think I started with good intentions. That's a kind of an uplifting change, but then it kind of got a little strange. Here it is, Elden ideas. Okay, so apparently you can see this. I don't know if you can see that. This is what was my page when I was working on the Elden, right? Elden ideas. Here's an idea, and then here's another idea, right there, and then I tried it again. And then here, if you can see that, it says winner. That's the one that won right there, the winner. So, let's see. I'm curious to know. I don't remember any of these. This first one. I kind of went nowhere. I'm not sure what I was writing there, but that doesn't really do it, does it? That doesn't sound good. Okay, so then there's a couple other ideas. We won't play through those, but here's the one that won. So we have this. So I remember writing that, and my thinking after going through these other variations, and I was trying to just write something that was just dark and dark and dark. I remember thinking, okay, what if I just take a step back and go, they're scientists, they're an advanced human race. Maybe what if they're just methodical, and just I can use the darkness and the dissonance, but the melody is very methodical, very calculating. And so I opened with just that. Right, and it's just sort of that repeating tone of E flat again and again, and then I knew I could break in some dissonance when I start on the E flat minor, and then I knew I could start getting a little bit out there when I went to C minor, but introduced a B natural in the melody. And you get this minor chord, a C minor chord, but the melody has a B in it, so it's a minor chord with a major seventh. Just a cool sound. When I kind of found that, I was like, okay, those two chords with that melody then kind of unlocked, for me in my mind, it sort of unlocked this, this is where we're going. Okay? All of a sudden a pin got put on the map, and I was like, now I know where I'm going. Once I hit that C minor with the B in it. So then it just became this. Go to A flat minor, and then B major. So you have B major, a bright moment for a second, and then kind of also it's a major chord, goes from B major to B flat major, but it just slips down, and then there's, as soon as you hit the B flat major chord, there's a minor ninth there, and it really sort of just tugs at you a little bit, and it kind of makes you wince. So again, the melody itself is not dissonant, but the way it's harmonized then becomes just dissonant. Moving on. The Devel. Which faction was your favorite to compose for, Exile or Dominion? There were a few songs named Story of. Yes. Was there a reason behind which races were chosen? That said, was there any unreleased Mordesh music? There is unreleased Mordesh music. I'll take the last part first. There is unreleased Mordesh music. All the ambient music that you hear in the game was never put on a soundtrack. And I'll work my way back up to the top. So a few songs named Story of. Yes, these were 4 songs that we wrote. Chad Moore came into my office and said, here's what I want to do. I want to write music that we can sort of either use in housing plots or give away as MTX items, tells the origin stories of some of our more popular races. So the only reason was we looked at what were the most popular, the 2 most popular Exile races and the 2 most popular Dominion races. And so that's what won. For Exile it was Chua and Cassians. Or sorry, for Dominion it was Chua and Cassians, and for the Exile it was the Orin and the humans. And so it was just sort of, we chose to do a story about Dorian Walker, which was the Legend of the Blue Horizon, just about the origin story of discovering the planet Nexus. So that was that. Which faction was your favorite to compose music for, Exile or Dominion? So I loved the intensity of the Dominion, but there was something so fun and so satisfying about that Western flavor I could work into the Exile music. It was just really fun to do, working in some banjo where you least expected banjo, working in that acoustic guitar. That was a lot of fun for me to do. Okay, Zarina says, what was your favorite overall track to work on? Which tracks presented the biggest challenge for you, whether it be feel-wise, instrument selection, etc.? Thank you so much for creating such a wonderful soundtrack. Oh, thank you for thanking me. Thank you. That means a lot. I do appreciate that you like it so much, even to this day. It's 5 years since it's been released. It's kind of crazy, right? 5 years doesn't seem that long, but it feels like it's been a long time. What was your favorite overall track to work on? If we take into account recording sessions and being able to work with the orchestra, it's probably a tie between Drusera's theme, which was brilliant to hear it come to life. I mean, the orchestra just did awesome with it. And Into the Unknown, which was, again, amazing to hear come to life. And if we're just talking about writing, just the writing process, Into the Unknown, that character creation music, was a chance for me to take 7 minutes and really spread my wings a little bit. There's nothing else going on. I didn't have to serve a purpose other than to provide background music while the player was equipping their character and making names selection and all that stuff. And so I kind of felt free and fun to be able to do that. And I remember just really enjoying writing that piece and then hearing it come to life with the different sections and some of the different moods. It just felt like we were about to embark on this huge adventure together, and I really enjoyed writing that piece. Hi, is Skywind out yet? Says, the scores have a certain feel to them. You know, the WildStar feel. It's unique, and I haven't heard anything like it before. Is that just your personal touch sound, or were you inspired by movies or other media to make it sound the way it did? Yes, so we talked about inspiration in a few in the past videos, but yes, I was definitely inspired by soundtracks, and definitely inspired by other composers. I've mentioned Alan Silvestri, Danny Elfman, for a lot of like the Chua, the quirky stuff, and especially the Shades Eve stuff. I mean, Shades Eve was so heavily inspired by Nightmare Before Christmas on purpose. I think from the art and the way in the gameplay of it, there was just a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas references, which was super fun. So I enjoyed all of that, and those were huge influences on me. Bumble D says, how did you end up working on WildStar? Would you say working on the project was a beneficial experience? Yes, it was a dream come true in many ways. I never got to write that much music before. And it was terrifying in many ways because I never had to write that much music before. So it was really fun to be able to step out and find myself as a composer. If you asked me day one on getting the job after I'd just written Justice Doesn't Always Wear a Badge, I would have told you all my insecurities about being a composer, and I don't know if I can do this, and I'm not sure if I can write this much music at the level that people are going to expect, and this and that. The experience gave me a lot of opportunities to touch those insecurities and realize, oh, I guess I can do that, or oh, I thought I could do that, but wow, I really fell short. I need to work on this. So as an artist, it really exposed my flaws that I didn't know I had, but it also gave me certain confidence in other things that I didn't know I could do. So and then working with a live orchestra was a dream come true, and that was a whole different level of validation for me to be able to walk into these sessions and to walk out feeling good about what we had recorded and feeling like it was just as good as other stuff out there. That was awesome. So it was a huge experience for me and very beneficial. I ended up working on WildStar because a friend of mine, Jason Hayes, who was composer at Blizzard for many, many years, he was a founding member of Carbine, and he hired me to be a sound designer back in October of 2008. And then he had left a couple years later. Jason left. He was the audio director and composer at Carbine, and he left to go to another studio, and that kind of just opened up a void. We needed music, and WildStar had sort of just become WildStar. I think we had just settled on a name and kind of a direction, embracing the sci-fi westernness of it all, and so I said, hey, I can write music and I would love a shot at this. And I remember the manager saying, I didn't know you wrote music. We thought you were a sound designer. And I said, well, I'm really a composer, and that's what I would love to do. And so let me show you. And then Stephen Frost came to me. He was a producer. He came over and said, hey, I'm rooting for you 100%. And I didn't really know him that well. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I said, I don't really know you, but thank you for rooting for me. And he said, he's like, listen, here's what you should do. Why don't you take the Zone of Algarok, take a couple days and try to write a theme for that, and let's just see what that sounds like, and we can present that. So that's what I did. And then I wrote Justice Doesn't Always Wear a Badge. I had the conversation with Frost on Friday. I wrote Justice Doesn't Always Wear a Badge over the weekend. I came back Monday. I said, what do you guys think? And then the rest is history. Moving on, Boom Cow says, how did you get into the mindset to create pieces that were so perfect for the areas, scenes, and events? I guess a lot of trial and error. I'm glad you think they fit perfectly, but a lot of trial and error. I'll say that. There was trying to find this blend of orchestra and and synthesizers and acoustic guitars to sort of fit this blend of what WildStar is or should be, was, yeah, a lot of trial and error. I just wrote a lot of things that didn't work, and I sort of just started to find this feeling. I can't even really describe it. It just felt like this hybrid music, right? Which is nothing new. We hear it in movies all the time. Synthesizers and orchestra. We hear that all the time, and it's great. But trying to do something that was orchestral and science fiction without being Star Trek or Star Wars, but also this pioneering spirit. And Chad Moore, really talked a lot about this because he was, at the time when I started writing music, he was the narrative guy. He was the lead narrative guy. And he just kept saying, man, we're not making a Western, but we are making something about this pioneering spirit, this adventure of a bold, brave new world, and finding your voice and your home in this new place. And so I really want to try and capture that. So that's how that came about. Okay, Desir says, is there a favorite track you had in the game? How was the overall work environment in Carbine? How was the atmosphere? A great one? Yeah, really great. Login music. So, hey, awesome. The login music, if you're talking about Into the Unknown or if you're talking about the main theme, I'm not sure. I think the main theme plays when you log in. But Into the Unknown, the character creation, both those are still, still can't believe they came from me. I feel like someone else wrote them. They didn't. Just I don't want to start any rumors. I wrote them, but it was sort of an out-of-body experience on both of those. Okay, is there a favorite track you had in the game? Yeah, it's hard to pick one, but I've talked about it. It kind of changes, I guess, every time I get asked. But Juicera's theme will always be near and dear to my heart, and that was something really special to work on. The main theme, I felt like it just was a great encapsulation of the spirit of the game. And so that is near and dear to my heart. And Justice Doesn't Always Wear a Badge, and that whole acoustic guitar, banjo feel, that's what really got me the gig. And that's kind of been near and dear to my heart. So, yeah. I know it's not really a great answer, but it's a hard question to answer. How was the overall work environment at Carbine? It changed, as things do. It changed over years. I don't think it's any secret. It was difficult once WildStar came out and it didn't meet expectations. I don't think anyone would say that we were high-fiving each other for years after that. I think we were all trying to do the best we could to fix what might be the issue of why people weren't playing it. And I think there were a culmination of issues that maybe just were unsolvable. But, you could definitely see the decline in the work environment. It wasn't ever hostile or anything like that. I mean, it was always, the people is what makes a great work environment. So the building was always the building, but the people that were there, I mean, were great people. And I had the privilege to work with some unbelievably talented people and some unbelievably kind and caring people. And that's what makes it worth getting up and going in every day. So while there were some frustrations with the game and with trying to fix it and go to free-to-play and all those challenges that we had, it made it stressful and it made for, long meetings at times. But at the end of the day, we were really trying to do what we could to make this game something great, and that's really all you can ask of people. So, okay. Psychotrips, Tweet Machine. I don't have any particular questions, but I just wanted to tell you how much I love your work, and I really hope you get to work on a project similar to WildStar in the future. Thank you very much. I hope I do too. I really appreciate that. All right, we're gonna plow through. I'm almost there. I got like 10 or 12 more questions, so let's plow through. I know this video is a long one already, but stick with me. Let's see what happens. Jason Henley, I've never played a game where the music fits so well into every place you explore. The Far Side theme, Reaching, and Drusera's Nursery are just hauntingly fantastic. Did you see the whole scenes and make the music? Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Well, I'll take Reaching really quick first. Reaching, all I had was, I remember just going into the game, or going into the zone early on, and just jumping in that low gravity situation, and I thought, this is so beautiful. And then I had just seen Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie, and I mentioned this earlier, it was a huge influence. But that M83 Joe Trapanese sound, Joe Trapanese being the composer, and M83, that guy, they worked together on that score for Oblivion, and it's just this beautiful, rich texture, hauntingly gorgeous. And I remember thinking that's what I wanted to try and do in Far Side, something that was your low gravity, so it feels kind of this weightless slow motion, but this sort of like you have a mission to do, so there's this sort of like pinging note that repeats, but still very beautiful texture and grows and builds over time. So that was my goal, and I was so happy with how that piece turned out. And then Drusera's Nursery, I just took her theme and I got to make it sort of this this more lullaby-ish version of itself. And both of those, I had just seen the room for the nursery. I didn't see anything other than the room was propped out and it was artified and had, all the art to it. But I didn't actually get to play through it. Same with Far Side. I was just sort of exploring the environment without really knowing what was going to be happening there. Alice Dare says, when it came to looking for inspiration for this game's OST, where'd you start and where did it lead you? So we've talked about this a couple times, but real quick, I'll summarize again that, inspiration came from a lot of film music that I love. Alan Silvestri, again, one of my favorites. Cowboys and Aliens, the film, not a great film, but the soundtrack was influential for some of those alt rock moments. And Oblivion, which I just talked about, Oblivion was great. There was Pacific Rim was a huge influence. I was listening to a lot of that. Listening to, a lot of Back to the Future for those triumphant horns, which Back to the Future is always one of the best. Listening to M83, listening to the Bastion soundtrack, and just hearing how he did it and what he did with some of this acoustic guitar stuff and just these riffs. It was just so good. So, and ultimately you sort of just absorb that and then you filter it through your own soul and your own personality. And it's sort of like writing an essay. You take the information, you take the inspiration, and you filter it through your soul, and what comes out is sort of a unique expression of you, but yet somehow you can hear the influences of the world around you, and that's kind of, what composing is like. Snowfox says, 2 questions. Oh, man. All right. WildStar's OST is full of leitmotifs. I agree, which is one of the reasons I love it. I love that you love it. I was so excited to try and do something like that. I'm a strong believer in thematic writing. I didn't want to just have chords and textures. I think there's a time and a place for that, but I want to be able to have people to have themes so that when you think about WildStar, when you're playing the game, I could hint at Drusera, I could hint at a race of people, I could hint at the Mordasher, I could hint at somebody else. And I really wrote myself into a corner sometimes. There's multiple cues in the game that only get to play at one specific point because I took 2 themes and I put them together, and it's the only place in the game where those 2 people or those 2 factions or races of people are put together. So I couldn't ever really use that piece anywhere else, but I thought it was important to give you guys thematic material to hang your hat on, so to speak. When you think about Star Wars, it's hard to separate the character of Darth Vader from the theme of Darth, the musical theme, the Imperial March. And so I wanted that same experience. I wanted that nostalgia. I wanted to be able to not only the game and the art to get its hooks into you and the story of the game, but also the music to get its hooks into you as an experience and have those melodies. And I think melodies are a strong way to kind of to generate that excitement and that nostalgia. Was it something that was asked of you? No, not really. No one ever asked me to do melodic writing. Some people were very nervous about it and saying, this is going to get old so quick because they're going to spend 20 minutes in this area and they're going to hear the same thing over and over again. So I tried to come up with a system that had the theme, like a zone theme, and then some silence, and then a random jukebox of some ambient music that maybe lasted 7 minutes or so, and then you hear the theme again. So it wasn't just a loop of one piece on repeat, but for the most part, I tried to mix it up. And so just to make sure it didn't get too repetitive. What went into the design of iconic leitmotifs like those of the Eldin and the Marauders? So I talked about the Eldin earlier. You can go check that out. And the Marauders, They were in here too. So I just passed them earlier. Let's see. Space Pirates. That's them. But what one here? What did I really do? Here it is. Marauders theme. Okay. So I loved what Pirates of the Caribbean did with the tonality and that kind of Celtic feel. So I wanted something that sort of fit in that vein. So it's just this kind of like Celtic-y 6/8, and it kind of just has this flow to it. And then you put the intense drums and stuff behind it, and it works really well as kind of a little piece on its own, a little melody. But then once you start adding the drums and guitars and these driving elements to it, it feels a little bit more like adventurous and swashbuckling. So that was heavily influenced by just hearing some of the Celtic changes and some of the melodic influences of certain parts of like Pirates of the Caribbean and how they used like that solo cello part. I think was great. Okay, he's got one more. A few tracks have vocals, with the exception of Hymn of the Six, which is a list of names. The vocals are in fictional languages. That's true. How did you design them? So I just sort of made them up. I knew that I couldn't use English because I didn't want to localize it, right? If I had From the Ashes, the Orin music where Nicole Fernandez is singing it, I couldn't have her sing English because I didn't want to have her sing it then in a bunch of other languages, and no one really wanted to ship a game with one track that was in English. So I just made up a language, and I made up words that kind of I put consonants together that felt like it could be sort of this almost Native American language. So this sort of beautiful native, almost ancient language. And I just sort of worked at blending consonants and sounds together to kind of make it feel that way. And I think it worked out pretty well. Hymn of the Six, there's a bunch of Latinish sounding things in there. And all these other words, they sound like Latin, but they're, again, just sort of consonants and syllables that just felt appropriate, but made up. Okay, Olympus says, bit late to the party, but I was curious how you came up with the music you did for WildStar and which score in particular gave you the most attitude when composing it. So the most attitude when composing it, that's a good question. I would say actually, I think the Exile theme, not the War Will Come, I think that poured out pretty easily. But the actual theme, the Resolve of Heroes, that was tough. And it was tough to pull together because I felt like I was falling into this trap of the good guy main theme trap of having everything be a certain way and formulaic. And I was trying to have it be different and sort of set apart. And so that one was tough. It took a lot of writing and rewriting to make happen. Okay, moving on to Foregone. Thank you so much for giving the fan base the opportunity. You are welcome, sir. All right, hang in there, guys. We're almost there. Next is Cupcake. Did you review storyboards that led to musical inspiration? Was it themed around actual gameplay? Thank you for sharing your talent with us all. Thank you. You're welcome. So, not storyboards. There was some concept art involved, and definitely playing the zones was a huge... Before they were really the zones, but playing early versions of the zones was a huge inspiration. And again, I really wanted to make sure the music I was writing was congruent with what I was experiencing emotionally as I walked through forests, fields, snow-capped mountains, whatever it was in the game. I wanted to make sure there's a congruency there. Anthony says, for many of the zones themes, there seems to be primary instruments. The horns and piccolo and systematic domination comes to mind. I know there can be some psychology behind them, but how did you come up with those combinations? So, in systematic domination, I knew that brass had to play a really strong part because it's, that's sort of an easy trope, right? The bad guys, this big, bold brass statement. So we did something brassy, but the piccolo in the beginning just offered this sort of. I was trying to do something that felt refined and felt So you have this imperialistic, like, we're gonna crush you attitude of this march. But then there's this organ in the beginning, and there's the piccolo, and I just wanted to do something that felt a little bit more, wasn't all oppressive, it was mainly oppressive, but then there's these moments of being refined and being high class kind of thing. And so adding a little bit of piccolo just gave it this shimmer to me of like, that made me believe that they thought they were doing the right thing, even though it was completely misguided. So that's how that came about. Dopamine, I'm going to try and summarize. He's got a ton of these. I'm going to try and summarize them quick. Would love a YouTube video on your writing process. Okay, someday I'll start. I've done a little bit of that here. I think that'd be fun to do as well. What made your WildStar work so special was that it wasn't typical video game music. You took risks. The melodies weren't generic themed background ambience. Yes, we've talked about that in these videos, and that was definitely a goal of mine, was to write thematically. Blades of the Taurine. Yes, so that was, it's funny about the Blades of the Taurine. It's written in 11/8, that chant and line, and I wrote it on an airplane, which was the only time I've ever done that. I was on my iPad, and I wrote this little sketch of the opening of the Taurine chant theme, and so that was pretty cool. I think too many places want the known entity in video game. Tried and true. I love WoW, but there's maybe one or two tracks I can even hum the melody to. Yeah, the risk paid off big time. I appreciate that. I think there's some really beautiful and interesting things when it comes to melody and themes, and just psychologically how we connect with melodies. I mean, you think about something simple like Happy Birthday, and everyone sings it and everyone knows it. Or, think of a song that you really love and think about how that melody makes you feel. Or when you hear a song on, in a game or in a movie, you're like, oh man, it just, there's almost a release, and it's therapeutic in a way to have that connection. And I think we're designed, our bodies or our soul is designed to have a connection with melody and rhythm and all that. And so I think it's beautiful to try and work in thematic stuff when you can. Mayoki says, does a world of WildStar inspire you for new music? What place does WildStar have in your heart? Yeah, there's a lot of places in WildStar that I wanted to write and never really got to. There's a lot of inspiring things in there that I never really got to touch, and I wish I had more time. But on another level, I have to sort of move on in a way. I don't know. I love talking about WildStar. I love doing these videos. I love interacting with people, and I will, and hopefully will be able to talk about WildStar for the rest of my life. But I don't want to choose to believe it's the best that I have. I think I want to still believe that there's some great things yet to come out of me. So I'm trying to appreciate the WildStar experience for what it was, while still sort of moving on and being able to look forward to what my capacity might be as a composer in upcoming projects. What place does WildStar have in your heart? I can't say it enough that WildStar was incredibly meaningful. The whole Carbine experience was amazing. The fact that people believed in me as much as they did and gave me as much of their time and talent and resources to record the score. And then the feedback from musicians that I just adore and love, and they come out of this recording session saying they love the music and they can't wait to hear more. So I think all that stuff was incredibly meaningful, and it's just some of the greatest memories of my life so far. Mayor Das Moose. Mayor and I have also had some great exchanges on Twitter. Thank you for chiming in here, Mayor. I've always wondered, of the release tracks, which one gave you the most trouble? The one you had to keep coming back to, took the longest to get just right. Yeah, there's a few of them. I think we talked about the Resolve of Heroes was problematic to get just right. And another one was the Sons and Daughters of Glory, the Cassian main theme. That one I do not have fond memories of. I think it worked out in the end, but that was tough. It was like pulling teeth. It was very difficult to... It couldn't be just the Dominion theme. The Cassians had to have something different to them. Something refined, something, I don't know, sort of unsettling, but yet proper and sort of highbrow and evil undertones. It was tough. It was a tough mixture. It's sort of like trying to bake a cake with really bizarre ingredients, and it took a long time, and that was not easy to do. So that one was tough. So Dopamine comes back with another question. Mine is a little more generic. What DAW did you use to write in, and what are some of your go-to plugins? So not all of the music was recorded live, but a lot of it was. I work in Logic Pro, and for strings, I use LA scoring strings with Vienna or with Spitfire strings. I also have the Berlin strings, so I kind of have a couple different libraries I can blend depending on the mood and tone that I want. For brass, I use the Cinesamples Core Brass. It's called Cinebrass. But I also have the East-West Hollywood Brass, and there's some really good things that's good for as well. I didn't use very many woodwinds in the WildStar score, but for woodwinds, I am using the Vienna Symphonic Library or the Spitfire woodwinds. And then synthesizers, man, Omnisphere. Spectrasonics makes Omnisphere, and it is all over the WildStar score. I don't know if there's a cue. There's probably a handful of organic cues, but for the most part, Omnisphere was on almost every track. I loved it. Okay, last question. Here we go. Thanks for sticking with it. Big finale. What kind of stuff are you looking to do on YouTube? More music? Any specific projects in mind? So it's a great question to end on. Here's what we want to do. I got some giveaways. If you missed it before, here, look. I'm not going to do it today, but stick with me. Subscribe, comment, like this. Eventually, I'm going to do some things. We got these little shot glasses giveaway. See those guys? Adorable. Little lop on them. Those guys are great. And then, got this pint glass. I'm giving that away. Those were given out at Carbine. Don't use mine. So, never been used, so you don't have to worry about germs. So, doing some giveaways. I want to do a video talking about just composer stuff and my approach to writing music, and maybe walk through some cues that are WildStar, some that are not WildStar. And I just kind of want to be able to interact with you guys and do some more stuff like this, answer questions. Maybe it's not WildStar related. Maybe it is. Maybe it's, something just composer questions. Love to walk through my process on writing a cue and show you how to build it from scratch. So a couple challenges. I don't have the necessary equipment I need to make these videos. So if you like these videos and you want more of them, awesome. Let me know, please. But there's definitely an investment of equipment that I would need to make more videos. But that's kind of what I want to do. I just want to be able to have that dialogue with you guys and show myself as a composer to anybody who wants to watch. So thank you for watching and sticking with me on the series. And we'll see you guys soon. All right. Bye.